Okay, so when we think about the absolute greatest Asian noodle bowls of the world, our minds usually travel straight to the rich, porky bowls of Japanese ramen, right? Or maybe the deeply aromatic, herbaceous bowls of Vietnamese pho. Those giants of the culinary world get absolutely all of the glory. But what if I told you there's an incredibly dense, completely wild, and totally overlooked noodle culture hiding right in plain sight? Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to journey deep into Myanmar's hidden noodle empire.
So, let's dive into this, because geography is literally our best friend here. If you look at a map, Myanmar sits directly at the ultimate culinary crossroads. It's wedged right between the intense spice cultures of India, the ancient culinary traditions of China, and the vibrant, fresh flavors of Southeast Asia. And when all of those regional borders collide in one single place, you get bowls of noodles that are unbelievably diverse and complex.
Section 1. Uncovering Myanmar's Noodle Culture.
Think of this explainer as our superlative culinary tour. We're hunting down the absolute thickest, richest, and most wildly regional noodles this country has to offer. Those colliding cultural borders we just talked about, they've created a truly unique noodle landscape. So instead of relying on just one type of starch, Myanmar's noodle scene spans across bases made of rice, wheat, and even mung bean. We're going to decode a whole spectrum today, from incredibly thick to remarkably thin, from dry mixed bowls to those submerged in rich, simmering broths. But to really ground ourselves, we have to start with the undeniable anchor of the entire country.
Section 2. The national dish, mohinga.
Mohinga isn't just famous, it's the ultimate local go-to breakfast. People are eating these thin rice noodles in a highly complex catfish broth to kick off their day. And watching street vendors assemble this is a rapid, highly visual art form. Step 1. They grab a clump of thin rice vermicelli, toss it in a steel bowl. Next, they take a pair of scissors and just rapidly snip in a fried fish cake, followed by grabbing a crispy peanut or bean fritter and absolutely destroying it right on top. Then comes the magic. A massive ladle of bubbling, complex catfish broth filled with whole eggs and these mysterious plant stalks. Finally, they garnish the whole thing with bright cilantro, fried shallots, garlic, and chili flakes. It is this chaotic but entirely perfect layering of wet and crunchy ingredients.
Now, what's really interesting here is the banana stems. If you look closely at these stalks floating in the broth, they contain these large cellular chambers. Because they aren't dense, they act exactly like a sponge, just completely soaking up that savory broth. When you bite into them, they deliver this incredible squishy crunch. It feels a bit like eating celery in texture, but the taste is entirely different and completely unique to this bowl.
And the liquid itself is a deeply savory broth that vendors actually thicken with toasted rice to give it more body. But here's the real kicker. Even though it's made of catfish, it tastes like fish without actually being unpleasantly fishy. I want you to imagine, just for a second, swapping out your boring morning cereal for this action-packed, flavor-dense ambassador of Myanmar.
Section 3. Thick and rich noodle heavyweights.
Moving from a delicate soup to our next massive superlative, we have nongi tok, which directly translates to thick noodle mix. And man, this represents a massive textural shift. These are arguably Myanmar's thickest noodles. They're massive, sticky, deeply starchy rice noodles that honestly put the thickness of Japanese udon to shame. And rather than swimming in soup, they serve as a dry base designed to highlight a fascinating mix of Chinese and Indian curry influences.
Walking through a dry assembly like this is just fascinating. First, you plate those giant rice noodles. Then you layer in fresh bean sprouts, fish balls, and a splash of fish sauce. But the secret weapon here? It's the addition of thick chickpea powder right alongside the chicken meat. That chickpea powder acts as a dry thickener, so when the vendor adds tamarind and a truly lethal dose of spicy chili oil, the powder ensures all those intense flavors stick and adhere right to the giant noodles.
And this brilliantly illustrates a fascinating culinary divide in Myanmar, the use of MSG. The vendor making this nongi tok is proudly MSG-free. Because of that choice, combined with the chickpea powder, this dish has a very lean, starchy, and sharply spicy flavor profile. We can neutrally contrast this with another vendor we'll meet shortly serving kazantinga, who proudly embraces MSG to create a heavily salted, unctuous, and incredibly rich umami bomb. It's literally two completely different philosophies coexisting in a single city.
Let's move to our third dish and see how this builds our understanding of the cuisine. Meet Ono Khao So, Myanmar's richest noodle. This is a visually stunning, golden coconut milk broth that vendors start simmering early in the morning. And because it cooks for hours, that creamy broth soaks into some incredibly unusual add-ons hidden in the pot. We're talking whole duck eggs, chunks of duck blood, and even chicken feet. Actually, scratch that.
It's more like chicken ankles.
Now, if you're a fan of Thai food, Ono Kalso might remind you of its famous cousin, Khao Soi, but they're actually quite different. While Thailand's Khao Soi relies on chewy egg noodles topped with crispy fried noodles for maximum crunch, Myanmar's Ono Kalso utilizes thick wheat noodles. These wheat noodles aren't about crunch at all. They're all about body. They sit heavy at the bottom of the bowl, soaking up an intensely rich, chicken-heavy broth where the coconut is perfectly balanced rather than overpowering.
Section 4. Regional and Unlikely Noodle Bowls.
To explore these regional and unlikely border bowls, we have to look to where Myanmar meets China, Laos, and Thailand, roughly 1/10 of Myanmar's population. To put that into perspective, that's right around 4 to 6 million people, belongs to the Shan ethnic group. And their distinct, vibrant regional culture birthed our next amazing superlative dish.
This is the Shan noodle, and today we're looking at the dry salad version. The vendor quickly blanches thin rice noodles to give them a steamy, elastic stretch, and immediately tosses them in a special savory sauce, crushed peanuts, sesame seeds, pork, and garlic. It's typically served with a side of incredibly thin, crunchy Shan tofu. But there's a huge catch here, you guys. You have to eat this hot and fresh immediately. If you wait too long, those starchy rice noodles will fuse together into one giant, solid clump.
The vendors of this particular Shan noodle claim they make the absolute spiciest chili crisp sauce in all of Myanmar. It's a bold claim for sure, heavily coating the noodles in an intensely dark, oily red paste. But does it actually hold up to the hype?
Well, according to the brave soul testing it in our source material, yeah. Quote, "It is like instant heartburn. It's burning in my mouth. I don't want this anymore." The extreme oily heat of this chili crisp is no joke. In fact, it entirely necessitates the side bowl of clean, pure chicken stock that comes with the dish, acting as the ultimate fire extinguisher for your palate.
Finally, we reach our fifth and most unique bowl, Kazant Hinga. This is Myanmar's most unlikely noodle. Why? Well, because it completely abandons rice and wheat entirely. Instead, it utilizes a giant brick of slippery, glassy noodles made entirely from mung bean starch. The incredible thing about mung bean glass noodles is their resilience. They can simmer directly in a hot, rolling broth for 2 solid hours without ever turning mushy or soggy.
And the ingredients floating alongside these noodles are just as fascinating. Take the wood ear mushrooms, for example, also known as black fungus. They provide a distinctly snappy, crunchy texture that serves as the perfect contrast to the softer ingredients in the bowl, like delicate tofu skin and a single boiled quail egg. But the real star is the mung bean noodles themselves, slipping around and acting as the ultimate social lubricant, tying all of these wild, umami-heavy, MSG-rich flavors together.
Section 5. The Ultimate Noodle Verdict.
So, what does this all mean? Summarizing this wild spectrum of starches, just look at the sheer stretch of culinary boundaries here. With all this incredible diversity, how do we possibly crown a winner? You've got the thin rice of mohenga swimming in broth, standing right next to the massive thick rice of nangi toke served dry. You have the hearty wheat of ono kalso competing with the stretchy mung bean starch of kazat hinga. Myanmar doesn't just do one style of noodle well. They've mastered the entire spectrum of starches and serving styles.
But despite the incredibly tough competition and the wild extremes we've explored today, the undisputed champion remains the national dish. Mohinga takes the crown for its unmatched savory depth. As our host hilariously put it, it was deeply savory and satisfying. That catfish broth, it catfished me like my wife on Tinder. It truly is an unforgettable bowl.
So I'm going to leave you with this thought. We've explored squishy banana stems soaking up fish broth, wildly thick udon-style noodles dusted in chickpeas, chicken ankles braised in coconut milk, mouth-melting chili crisp, and MSG-heavy glass noodles. Knowing all of that, which of these 5 incredible extremes would you be willing to swap your normal, boring breakfast for? Think about it. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.